India have been crushed by South Africa in their first Super 8 match of the T20 World Cup 2026, and that show was embarrassing. The most frustrating part is how predictable it felt once the collapse had started. India didn't look like a team chasing a serious target. They looked like a team that would just assume things would just fall into place and they'd get the win handed to them on a silver platter. Abhishek Sharma is a topic that needs to be discussed because his innings raised real questions. He's still early in his career, but the way he got out, it didn't look like someone is adapting to the situation. It looks like someone is playing the same pre-decided shot regardless of the match context. At this level, you're going to get found out by attack of the caliber of South Africa. And this is where the selection debate starts. Because when players keep getting chances without delivering in big moments, people will question whether decisions are based on performance or backing favourites. Abhishek Sharma has 3 ducks in this tournament, yet he's still opening the batting. Even former Pakistani players have started taking shots at his batting, questioning his mindset and his decision making. Coming into this game, India looked like one of the strongest teams in the tournament. Everything was working. The batting looked stable, the bowling looked reliable. But in this match, South Africa exposed that. They exposed exactly where things can fall apart. India entered the Super 8 fixture against South Africa carrying strong momentum and the kind of tournament form that had positioned them as one of the favourites. Their batting had looked structured. Their bowling was disciplined, and most importantly, they had been controlling games rather than reacting to them. But this match was different. South Africa didn't just edge past India, they exposed structural weaknesses in both innings. First by recovering from early damage with the bat, and then by completely dismantling India during the chase. The margin of victory reflected not just execution, but control. South Africa dictated the direction of the game from the middle overs onward, and India were never able to recover once that control was established. The game began in India's favour when they struck early against South Africa after they chose to bat first. Jasprit Bumrah and Arshdeep Singh applied immediate pressure with disciplined new ball spells, extracting movement and forcing South Africa's top order to make mistakes. At 20 for 3 inside the power play, India had done exactly what any bowling side aims to do after losing the toss. They had destabilised the opposition early and created an opportunity to restrict them to a manageable total. At that point, South Africa's priority shifted from expansion to survival, and this phase of the innings ultimately defined the outcome of the match. David Miller and Dawood Brevis approached the situation with clarity. Rather than attempting to counter-attack immediately, they focused on rebuilding through calculated strike rotation and selective aggression. They respected Bumrah's remaining overs, targeted the other bowlers when the margin for error increased slightly, and gradually rebuilt the innings without exposing themselves to unnecessary risk. Brevis, in particular, showed maturity beyond his years, recognising which bowlers to attack and which to neutralise. Miller complemented him perfectly, waiting for bowlers to miss their lengths and capitalising on anything marginally short or over-pitched. Their partnership shifted the momentum of the innings. What had initially looked like a sub-140 total began to move towards something far more competitive. Once they crossed the 100 mark collectively, South Africa began expanding their stroke play with far more freedom. Miller's ability to access straight boundaries and clear the infield consistently forced India's bowlers to adjust their lengths, and once that adjustment happened, scoring opportunities increased. This is where India lost their grip on the innings. Outside of Bumrah, who finished with the outstanding figures and maintained control throughout his spell, the rest of the attack struggled to sustain pressure during the middle overs. The final phase of South Africa's innings further highlighted their composure. Tristan Stubbs played a crucial role in the death overs, ensuring that the innings did not stall after Miller's dismissal. Instead of a late collapse, South Africa accelerated intelligently, finishing on 187 for 7. From India's perspective, the chase required structure above everything else. A target of 188 is demanding, but entirely achievable with proper phase management. The first objective is always to preserve wickets during the power play, while maintaining a reasonable scoring rate. But India were unable to establish that foundation. South Africa's bowlers approached the second innings with clarity and discipline, using the scoreboard pressure to their advantage. Marco Jansen extracted bounce and forced uncomfortable strokes, while the introduction of spin during the middle overs disrupted any attempt by India to stabilise their innings. Wickets fell regularly, and the most concerning aspect of India's chase was the absence of partnerships. In successful chases, at least 1 or 2 batters typically absorb pressure and rebuild momentum. That never happened here. Instead, India's innings became fragmented, with batters attempting to accelerate without first consolidating. This approach often emerges when the required run rate begins to climb and batters feel compelled to force the game rather than construct it gradually. South Africa recognised this and maintained relentless pressure through disciplined bowling and well-structured field placements. Shivam Dube provided some resistance with a fighting innings, but by that time he was at the crease. The required run rate had escalated beyond sustainable limits. South Africa's spinners, particularly Keshav Maharaj, controlled the middle overs by wearing pace and forcing batters to hit against the spin into longer boundaries. This phase effectively ended the contest. The defining difference between the two teams was their ability to adapt to changing match situations. South Africa, after losing early wickets, recalibrated their approach and rebuilt their innings with patience. India, after losing early wickets in the chase, never successfully recalibrated. Instead, the innings became reactive rather than structured. This distinction often separates winning sides from losing sides in T20 cricket. What makes this result even more significant is that it reflects a broader pattern emerging in the tournament. Earlier in the day, England defended a modest total against Sri Lanka. England only scored 146 batting first, and a total that would normally be considered below par on most T20 surfaces. However, once they had runs on the board, their bowlers were able to operate with attacking intent. They applied pressure through disciplined lengths, forced Sri Lanka into high-risk strokes, and eventually dismissed them for under 100. The similarity between these two matches is important. In both cases, the team batting first established scoreboard pressure, and the chasing side struggled to manage that pressure effectively. This raises a tactical question that teams will need to consider moving forward in this World Cup. This does not mean chasing is impossible, but it does mean that batting first allows teams to dictate the structure of the game more effectively. For India, this loss is not just about one match. It exposes areas that need immediate correction, particularly in how they approached high-pressure chases. Their batting lineup has the skill and depth to chase these larger totals, but execution under pressure requires clarity, patience, and structured decision-making. As the Super 8 stage progresses, results like these will shape how teams approach toss decisions and match strategy. Batting first, building competitive totals, and applying scoreboard pressure has proven effective so far. And if this trend continues, teams that adapt quickly to this reality will place themselves in the strongest position to advance further in the tournament. India, despite their quality and reputation, were unable to establish when it mattered the most.